recognize the other guy? Okay. So this is some real stuff we have to do in office. So we have to wear masks so that no one can identify us. Sorry? That's what my CEO thought when we first started it. Okay. So before moving to the presentation, so let me give you a brief idea about, or brief little bit about what CSRF is. How does it work and why do we need to test for CSRF? So imagine we have a victim's computer which has an active connection with the application. So active connection in the sense that suppose it has a valid session and the user is logged on and is currently authenticated to the system. When an attacker hops in and sends a fake link to the victim with some fancy offers, it's like get some discount on eBay or win and free prize, both to pay something. And if the victim clicks that link, the page in the link will contain a request in a hidden format which it will send to the same server web application to perform some request. So when he clicks the link, a request with the cookie of the victim, since the request is going from the victim's computer, so the browser will send the cookie automatically, which also has a session in it. So this executes a particular request or particular command which was set by the attacker on behalf of the victims over the web application. So the victim doesn't have any idea what just happened to him. The command can be anything. If it is a banking application, you can transfer money. If it is imagine Facebook. You guys post comments and post a lot of threads in Facebook, right? So what if someone tries to post a thread or post a comment on behalf of you without you knowing it? So that is how harmful CSRF is and what it can do. Why do we need to test it? Well, for application owner, poses high threat to user, fraud, user of a particular website, if they get these kind of things, and if something happens to their data or something malicious, so obviously the trust of the user is also coming down, and eventually the site will go down, since it doesn't add that much amount of trust in the market. For security tester, high bug bounty program, say 5,000 rupees, you can ask Amol Naik, he's sitting over in the front desk here. And 5,000 rupees is $5,000 is a huge amount. I think we can have a great round of applause for this guy. Well, a great learning experience also. CSRF in itself is such a kind of vulnerability. If you get to know it more and more, you will feel like you know something about the application. You will find it really interesting to test CSRF vulnerability and see how the application behaves when you send a request and when you tamper the request and modify it. So this itself is a very good learning experience for a tester. Challenges. What I personally, when I used to test CSRF, when I test for CSRF in a particular application, let's say 100 pages application. So there are numerous amount of requests. There are thousands and thousands of requests which goes from which a user sends to the server. So it's very much difficult and almost impossible to test each and every of it without missing anything. So that is again a very very hectic task. So imagine you have to cover the entire, you have to pen test the entire application with a lot of vulnerabilities, not only CSRF. So being CSRF is going to take a huge amount of time, so you have to focus on other things also. So CSRF in itself is going to take a huge amount of time. And even after you find out a vulnerability, you have to make a proof of concept of it so that to see whether it works for other people also. You have to test it, you have to send the POC to someone to see if it works or not. So what is this tool? I've already mentioned it's a lightweight Mozilla Addon, looks for CSRF issues, and it has a partially automated way. I will not say it has a full automated way. It has a partially automated way of finding CSRF with a certain level of user intervention, which I will be demonstrating in detail when we will go to the demo part. And it also generates a proof of concept file in few clicks, 2 or 3 clicks, we can generate a beautiful proof of concept file without any coding. Why we need this? Saves a lot of time. Easy testing, just few clicks, and you just have to start the scan. It will look for vulnerabilities in it. Lot more things. Partially automated. And yeah, features. What I have it has a beautiful whitelisting and blacklisting feature. So all of you guys have been using some add-ons or some tools to test your application, right? So live HTTP header. How many of you have used live HTTP header? Yeah. So live HTTP header has a functionality. So it captures all the requests which goes through the browser, isn't it? So and it has a filtering mechanism also, which uses a regular expression. So how many of you actually use those regular expressions to filter the URLs? Sometimes what happens is when suppose you are testing a particular website and there is another anonymous request coming from a different website. Suppose you are logged into your Gmail account or your Facebook account, so they keep on sending some kind of request to the server, right? Which also gets collected in the live HTTP header tree, and which is not actually required, so which makes your request go down, and which is actually very difficult for you to go back and search your request and to perform anything over it. So this thing, the tool has this beautiful whitelisting and blacklisting thing in which you can whitelist and blacklist any particular domain which you don't want or specifically want to be scanned. In the POC part, it has an JSON as well as XML support. So in case of AJAX request and any other request, you don't apart from get and post, with the normal get and post, it also does support JSON. You can go and just generate the POC also. So this particular part is also a very painful job because people have to go back and write their own code for JSON or XML, then replay the page, then send the page so that it will send the exact response to what the browser did. So that is a hectic process. So this will automate it and make this very simple for you guys to just do it in a few clicks. Am I going too fast or? That's fine. Okay. So how the tool works? This is normally we have a normal user who has been interacting with the web application in a normal way. So when the tool comes in, when the CSRF finder comes in, then the request will be redirected or will go through the tool. So now, and the tool will first capture those requests, it will record it, will keep it, cache it, and then it will send the request to the server. So it keeps a record of all the requests that goes through it. Now, what you can do after it is, you can check for CSRF token the parameters. So basically it has two ways of testing CSRF, which I will be covering in the demo part. In this case, what you can do is, you can check for CSRF token in all those captured request parameters. So it might be a GET request, it might be a POST request, it might be a JSON. Doesn't matter what is the format of that request. So it will look for CSRF tokens, the tokens which you have to provide in the settings. Now after you have completed the testing, suppose you found a page which the add-on says is not vulnerable to CSRF, but you still want to test because there are some scenarios in which suppose if the token is also present, the application might not be validating the token properly. So I think that's what happened in case of Facebook, in which Amon found the vulnerability. So the token was there, but it was not able to validate it properly, which was leading to a CSRF attack. So in that case, you can recheck that, you can resend that particular request to check for CSRF. So in this case, the application will send that request again to the server, and it will look for the response, and it will give a result depending upon the comparison. And if you again want to see it manually, the exact request rendered, the exact HTML content rendered in the browser, that option is also available. So demo time. So I have created a sample application to test to see how it works. And if we just go through this application, we'll say filelcon. This is a simple application which just sends the data from the file and it logs into the database. So we'll test whether the CSRF is present in these three categories. So I have basically categorized this demo into three parts. We have a low part first, then we'll move on to the medium, then we'll move on to the high part. So let's start with the low part. I'm gonna switch on the CSRF finder. Post this comment. Let's see. And as you can see, we have recorded something. We have recorded the request which just traveled from the browser to the application, to the web application. And here is a start scan option which only looks for CSRF token in the particular request. So here is where we have configured the CSRF token. So for this application, I have used a token called CSRF token. So is it visible to you guys? Okay, if you guys cannot see it, then I think you can come forward to be more visible from here. So yeah, this application I have used a particular token called CSRF token. So now if I start the scan, it says the red marker says this request doesn't have a CSRF token. So it's simple. If this request doesn't have a CSRF token, then there is no need of sending the request to the server again and checking whether the response matches or not, since this request doesn't verify for CSRF at all. Moving on to the next thing, which is the medium part. Again, I'll post a comment here. So now what we can do is, it's captured the request and you can see the token is there. So if you start the scan, it says the token is present. So this parameter checking part says that this request is not vulnerable to CSRF since it has a CSRF token available in it. But being a user, if you want to recheck it, so since to see whether the token is properly validated in the server side, what you have to do is you have to right click and check CSRF. As you see, after checking for CSRF, the application now says that this request is vulnerable to CSRF. It removed this earlier assumption of not this request being saved from CSRF, and it gives a new prediction, and it says the application, this request is vulnerable to CSRF. Now it's going to verify that. You see how you're going to verify that. So for that, I have given a simple option called show difference. Now show diff is going to show you two different browsers or two different pages in which you can see the same request sent twice to the server, one with token and one without token. So in both the cases you see the request the comment has been posted successfully. So this gives the user a better idea and better observation to know whether the CSRF token is actually present and whether this request is actually vulnerable or not. Now moving on to the high part. this request says, it again says this is not vulnerable to CSRF because it has the token in it. Now let's try to resend this request and check. So even after resending the request, the application says it is still protected with CSRF. So it checks it. So even after resending the request, this application says there is the CSRF, this request is not vulnerable to CSRF. And you can see the difference over here, simply why. The first with token, it's posted the comment successfully, but without token, it failed to post the comment. So we can now clearly know that this request is not vulnerable to CSRF. So this is the functionality of this is the two way of checking CSRF. First is if you just want an overview to check whether the CSRF token is present or not, then you can go to the normal process of starting scan and just browsing to the website and just hit the start scan. But if you want to go deep and see if the token is present and actually not working, or if the token has some issue, then you can go to that, you can select individual requests and you can check for CSRF, which will give you a more detailed idea about it. So moving on to the next feature, what I was saying is the POC part. If you take this, suppose you found this request is vulnerable to CSRF and you want to create a POC. So the simple thing is you just click any part of this request, click the POC button. So it will populate everything in the same format. What you can do is if you want to edit something over here, you can do that also. And you just hit the generate button. In the desktop, let's say now you can see a POC is generated properly with each and every ID and parameter as per the request, it fetches the data for the request and it created the file. So Amol suggested me to add a hidden parameter over here, so I'll be doing that soon. So going back, apart from this scanner, if you only want to use the POC part, there is nothing to scan, but you have a request which you want to just convert to POC. So you can simply go here and paste the value as per mentioned over here and create a POC file as like that. You don't have to do the scan for it. There is a replay functionality over here also, which will help you to replay a particular function. So if you want to manually remove the CSRF token or edit the data, then what you can do is you just replay it over here. So this will send the request. And if you want to do the replay from here, if you don't want the POC part over there, so what you can do is the same part here, you can right click and replay. You can from here you can also edit anything. So if you want your user agent, you want to inject something in the user agent or try, or if you want to change the post data, so what you have to do is just right click it, edit the post data, add something, or just remove the CSRF token from here, save the data, and replay. As you can see, it failed since I removed the CSRF. Apart from that, it has the other small functionalities are also there. Copy and edit things I have already shown. This is something which I have kept for this thing, but I'll be moving it in the advanced part of it because you might be needing these things at some point of time when you might not figure out if there is some problem with the request, or if you want to debug it, if you want to see it properly whether the request is actually having any response or not. Then what you can do is you can just select the request and you can see the data. It will show you the entire HTML content of that request. And if you want to see after rechecking CSRF, if you want to see whether that token has any data or not. basically this will show you the content of the response of that request after removing the CSRF token. So the first one is called show data and the second one is called show data without token. Moving on to the settings part. So I was talking about some filters which you guys can find it over here. So this is basically capturing. If you only want to capture a certain URL, then what you can do is you can mention the host name over here, comma separated, like anything. The scanner is only going to pick google.com and nullcom.net data. It's going to reject all the other things what comes in. And if you don't want that, you want a particular website to be blocked. Suppose sometimes what happens, your browser sends some certificates during whatever you are testing. So if you want to specifically blacklist that, so you can do it in the same way. You just have to select the URL which you don't want to check for and add it here. Suppose you don't want any Facebook data to be recorded, because if your Facebook session is alive and you are doing the testing in a new tab, so Facebook will sometimes send some AJAX calls which gets recorded and which interrupts with your request. So you can just simply blacklist the Facebook Facebook domain. Capture response body is what I have given. If you don't want to check the CSRF too deeply, like by resending request, what you can do is you can just remove this thing. It won't capture the response body and it will just capture the request and will tell you to it will only look for CSRF token in the parameter. It won't go deep inside and resend the request. CSRF token is something what you have to provide to the application so that it can look for the token in the request. So that is again comma separated. You can say provide these tokens with commas, separating with comma. Now an interesting question is, thing which I analyzed, suppose you are doing some testing on two different sites. Let it be, suppose you are doing you want to find a CSRF vulnerability in Facebook as well as you are trying to find it in PayPal. How do you do it simultaneously? Suppose Facebook has a CSRF token called FB_DTSG and PayPal has a different CSRF token called test. So the test might be a CSRF token for Facebook, but for PayPal, but it might be a normal parameter for Facebook. So that's gonna jumble it, isn't it? So if you check for CSRF, so it's gonna show you some different result, and the result will be fuzzy. You won't be able to understand whether it's actually found at the FBDTL token or it's the PayPal token. So for that, what I have done is, in the token part, you can specify something like this. If you only want to test for google.com, so you can specify google.com and the CSRF token for google.com, separated by semicolon. So when you run the scan now, so if the request is coming from google.com, so it will only look for Google and Google new CSRF token in it. It won't look for entirely the other tokens. It won't look for the other tokens. Similarly, for other websites, it will only look for these tokens and it will ignore these Google and Google new, since these tokens are to be checked for google.com only. Scan try, check for CSRF and check by resending request. So resending request I have already shown you. This is the process where I am trying to automate the resending request. It's like you keep on getting the request and the tool will automatically send those requests and try to figure out whether the CSRF is there or not. So I'm trying to remove that manual part and making it a little bit more automatic. Scan mode automatic is something, if you switch to automatic mode, so as you can see the scan option has gone away now. So what you can do is, like, if I go to a particular application and I send a request, As you can see, it automatically took that request and checked for CSRF token. So automatic mode is something you don't have to start the scan automatically. You have to browse, you have to just browse through the website and it will automatically capture it and will start testing it. So this is a feature which is currently available. There are a lot more features which I have planned and plan to update in the newer version. Moving back to the slides. So the future, what's coming up next is I'm trying to do a session management over here so that you can keep the working session, you can save your working session. If you want to quit the job in between, you can just take the backup and save it in a file. And whenever you come back, you can just get that session and start working from there itself. I'm trying to make also a scan history which will keep a record of whatever scan you have done and kind of results. And it will also generate a report, brief report of what is the request and what token it found, and lots of things I've been working on those that time. Thanks to these guys, they helped me a lot in developing this thing. I took a lot of help when I got stuck in some point of time, so thanks to these guys. I think that's all. I'll take any questions now.
Question? So how exactly are you checking for the CSRF token? Are you comparing the proper response and the failed response? And basically, I believe you are tampering the URL parameters and resending the request, right?
Yes.
After that, you are comparing the responses and finding out if it's vulnerable to CSRF.
Yes. So basically, I am removing the token from the request. So there could be two scenarios. Either the response, we have to remove the CSRF token entirely and resend the request, or we can modify the CSRF token data and resend the request. So both the ways. Sometimes what happens is, even if the CSRF token is there, the value doesn't matches, so it doesn't matter the value matches or not. So there is two ways of testing. So now, whenever I'm getting the response back, I'm matching the responses with the earlier one which I cached. But I have given it a thought of making it on the basis of difference or on the basis of body, getting the data of only the HTML body part and finding out the difference, proper difference, and figuring out on the basis of that difference whether this request is vulnerable or not.
Okay, so you are removing the CSRF token and then filing the request and seeing if the response is
Yes.
But I think it would be better, you tamper and see if there are 10 parameters, URL parameters. Tamper one parameter and send a request and see the response and go on doing that with the CSRF token, right? Because the basic purpose of CSRF is to ensure that all the entire URL, including all the URL parameters, are considered for CSRF.
No, So consider an URL which contains some data, so financial information. Suppose you are transferring your money from one bank account to another bank account. So that will be having the parameters such as from account number or amount and a CSRF token. So if you tamper that request and if you just change the money part, so obviously since the token is already available, so that will be a successful request because the token is available. So the authentication that has been done at this application level is with the basis of the token. It's not on the basis of the other parameter which you are sending.
Okay. So what about the source code? Are you making it available?
Yeah, this is. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. Yeah, this is going to be open source, and I'll be uploading it soon to the Mozilla repository so that you can download it from the Addon session.
Another question about how you do the check with CSRF token. So do you just remove it and see if the request gets processed without it, or do you actually temper the token?
Yeah, so as I told, there are two ways. You can either remove it or you can edit the data. So currently in this demo, I am removing the token, but the feature of tampering the data, I'll be adding it in the new version. So which I'll add it and upload it to Mozilla.
So will tampering be manual, or will your tool do some tampering?
The tool will do it automatically. You don't have to tamper it manually.
I think having it tampering manually will be also a good feature.
So, thank you.
you so much, Piyush.
Thank you.
Great.